Liza Carneghi, who is a top producing agent here in Silicon Valley. Today, she's going to share some of her tips and strategies with regards to building a business and basically talk about her real estate career over the last 10 years, where she's been at, where she's at today, and where she's headed. Liza, welcome.
Hi, Fernando. Thanks so much for having me today. I wouldn't have said yes to anybody else, but here I am. I think it's going to be a really fun conversation because you've known me kind of from the beginning, the middle, and here I am 10 years in my career. So I think it'll be really fun to talk about, where we started, where I'm going, and the future.
Absolutely. It reminds me of that Drake song. Started from the bottom and now we're here.
Literally.
Right. Through all the trials and tribulations that is a decade in real estate. So the first thing that I wanted to ask you, Liza, is just tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously, I know you from back 10 years ago when you first started at Intero. But for those that are watching this and don't know much of you or don't know anything of you, tell us who you are, and then we'll get more into real estate stuff afterward.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Liza Carneghi. There's only one of me. I'm a realtor here in the Silicon Valley, located in Willow Glen in a suburb of San Jose. I'm a wife. I'm a mom of two little boys, 3 and 5. And I would say my biggest identifier is that I'm a realtor. I build community through helping buy and sell real estate. I'm a mom and I'm a wife.
There you go. And one thing you said right now that we're going to really dig into at some point today is building communities. I think for a lot of people that get into real estate, they have more of a transactional mindset. Would you agree with that?
I would absolutely agree that there's all different styles in real estate. It's so funny because I was talking with an old colleague today and I was saying, whenever I start thinking about real estate as transactional, right? If I sell this home for this price, I'll get X paycheck. It never works out for me.
Never.
Those deals never, ever close. You never get that listing. That buyer doesn't work out. It's always about, customer service. It's about serving your client's needs, and then the paycheck is the outcome.
Absolutely, right. It's a byproduct.
1,000,000%.
It's almost like you had mentioned, right? Like it doesn't work out because it's like quicksand, right? You ever hold like some sand in your hand and just kind of slip through? It's like, because like you're right, you're not like giving it love, right? You're not giving it that care, that attention. And that's what I was trying to get at as far as being relational is the opposite of transactional. Maybe there's a middle ground when you're both relational and transactional, but the best way, I think, and you would agree with me, you probably are the expert at this from the people that I know as far as building relationships with your clients. Tell us a little bit about that part. Like how do you go about building relationships? How do you stay in touch with people? How do you essentially create your own tribe and Liza fan base?
Well, it's a growing fan base, so I'll say that. I didn't grow up here. I didn't grow up in the Bay Area. I didn't grow up in Willow Glen. And so when I started in real estate, I didn't have a built-in what they call sphere, right? I didn't have a ton of friends and family that I was just going to piggyback my business off of and say, I went to high school with that person, so naturally they'll use me as their realtor. So I had to start not only, building friendships, but building my community by joining the gym and going to the same Starbucks and walking the neighborhood and getting to know my neighbors. And so that really kind of naturally progressed my business.
Absolutely. I want to read you something today that one of my colleagues, that he's located in Southern California in Dana Point. He was our top producing realtor last year. And I'll read the whole thing, right? But it relates to what you were just talking about. So his name is Gaston, by the way. And he says this today on Instagram. He says, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I'll say it again. Positioning is everything. Reverse engineer by identifying what price point you want to sell at, where do those properties exist, who lives there, and what do they do for fun? Golf, car shows, restaurants. Then position yourself at those places consistently, and do not leave until you've met one new person. Do this enough and your business will happen. Run through your business correctly and the snowball effect is inevitable. Get out there, meet new people, and watch the magic happen.
absolutely. I completely identify with that, right? So as I said, it's like my identity is realtor, mom,
Mm-hmm.
Wife, exercise enthusiast. And so
Mm-hmm.
I naturally make those relationships. And I often get to work with clients who are in a similar part of their life. Either they've been in a smaller home and they're ready to leverage into something larger, or they're a downsizer and they remember back when they had little kids. But it's such a natural relationship. And so when you say, like, I've created this fan base, it was so easy because I really just identify with most of my clientele.
Yeah, absolutely. That's important. I want to go back to 2013.
Oh,
Damn,
gosh.
2013 feels like a long time ago, right? You got your real
Yeah.
estate license. First of all, tell us why you decided to get your real estate license.
Okay. So I have always loved real estate. My grandmother was a
Okay.
broker in Beverly Hills when I was a kid, and I'd
Wow.
go on caravan tours with her with the old Thomas guides and sit in the back of her 67 Mustang, and go look at beautiful, beautiful homes all over Los Angeles in the Beverly Hills area. And from there, I ended up kind of more in the fashion sector. My other grandmother was a designer, and I loved that as well. And so, that gave me a more steady paycheck working in retail or high-end fashion. But as I got older and wanted to really build a career, I realized that real estate had always been something that was fiery and exciting to me. And I was in a position, newly married, that I had a partner who said, let's do it. I'll invest in you and go and build a business. And that's what I did.
You know what's interesting about that? So Valentine's Day just passed a few weeks back,
A few days ago.
well, we're not going to put this out live, so
Oh, edit that out.
no, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. But anyway, so Liza, Valentine's Day, Liza, passed, a few days ago, if we're being honest and accurate here. And a lot of people, that does help them to get started, right? Having that partner that supports them, that says, hey, if this is something that you want to do, I got your back, you can do it. So tell us a little about Brad. How has Brad played a big role in support, helping you get your real estate career started and then helping you thrive as the years have passed on?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you that don't know me, Brad is my husband. We've been married for almost 9 years and together on and off for almost 20 years this year. And so about a decade ago, when I decided, or 11 years ago, that I wanted to pursue real estate, Brad invested in me. He said, some people invest in the stock market, and I'm going to set aside this money and I'm going to allocate it towards investing in you and building your business. And what that meant was that he was going to literally help me with marketing, as a marriage, as a partnership, and as a spouse, but also financially. He backed me for the first couple of years as I built that. And to this day, funny you touch on Valentine's Day, our Valentine's night was spent on our sofa stuffing marketing mailers. That's what we did for Valentine's. We had dinner, we sat side by side on the sofa, watched the Pamela Anderson documentary on Netflix, and finished the last 300 notepads that needed to go out to my farm. I mean, he's still just as supportive today, 10 years later, as he was then.
In real estate, that's love. When people help you with your flyers, with your marketing, licking stamps, writing envelopes for you, right? Because you're right. This is something that we have to do, and always helps when we have people that helps us with this. So back at 2013, you were getting started with your real estate career, and things didn't start great for you, right? You got off to a slow start. Tell us about that first, say, 12 months or so. What was that like? What were some of your struggles that you encountered? And looking back now, what do you think you would have done differently in the beginning?
I mean, gosh, Fernando, you knew me way back when. I'd say my first 12 months were an absolute struggle. And I think the very biggest thing I lacked was confidence in myself. I really felt I couldn't add value. I couldn't add value to a client because I hadn't experienced enough. I hadn't built my resume. And so I needed to kind of sort out a way that I could create that resume? How was I going to build it? How was I going to gain that confidence? And that first 12 months was a real struggle getting there. And then I ended up joining a team.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, Zillow was huge. That's right when it was really starting to take off. And a lot of the buyers in our marketplace were using Zillow to find their realtor. And so through this team, I was able to get buyer leads, right, that I wasn't able to create on my own. And then every single buyer that came through was an opportunity to learn, to grow, to see houses, to write offers, to get to know neighborhoods, to understand schools and ratings and rating disclosures and inspections. And so in a very short amount of time, I went from doing, 0 deals a year to 15 deals a year. And it was awesome.
And then off you go.
Yeah, then off you go. And then the confidence builds, because now you've got the resume, you've got some understanding, some knowledge behind you. And you've also maybe had some hiccups in the road, and you've had a contract fall through, or you've had to deal with inspections or inspectors or unforeseen problems. And all of that, just as funny as it sounds, that builds confidence, because in those mistakes, you learn and grow, and then you're able to provide more value moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same thing with fitness, right? You got to get your sets and reps in. Otherwise, you're never going to grow, right? You're never going to have that endurance that you're building, that strength that you're gaining. Same thing with real estate. So you started working with Mark Tatar, who is now a running enthusiast as well, from what you tell me. So, good on Mark to get into running. So you started working with Mark. What would you say you learned the most during the time that you worked with Mark? Or what was the one thing you took away from the experience?
Follow up.
Okay. Tell us more about that.
So again, at the time, Zillow's huge. And we were not getting a couple leads. We were getting dozens and dozens of leads, sometimes weekly. And the way Zillow would work is that, they'd ping you that you got a lead, but there was like a speed to contact, right? Because you weren't the only one receiving that lead. And so not only would you need to follow up with these people once or twice, sometimes it would be 10 times before you got a response, because you'd have to figure out, because it's kind of like a cold call, right? You don't know these people, you don't have a relationship, you don't know their work schedule, school schedule. And so you'd have to just try all different times of the day or night, email, text, phone call, to make those connections. And so follow-up was an absolutely huge takeaway from that experience.
Yeah, and that is true, right? You don't know them. They don't know you. You don't know if they're talking to other agents, or if next weekend they're going to open houses and talking to other agents. I'll tell you this, one time, this was back, I want to say 2014. So around that time, I met someone at an open house that I hosted. And then, I follow up, I start the connection. We go out, start looking at property. And then the client asked me one time, he goes, "Why should I work with you? I don't know you from the next guy," right? And so in that situation, you kind of do got to come up with an answer as far as why that lead should stick, or why that buyer should stick to working with you versus just kind of going off with the next person. And it goes back to we talked about earlier. I mentioned the word value, right? As you get more experience and more success, you're able to give them clear and defined answers versus just the typical, "Well, I'll work hard for you," or "I'll do X, Y, and Z." Now you can be very clear. Well, you know what? If you're looking in this neighborhood, I've sold X amount of homes in this neighborhood, or I know the neighborhood, or I know the agents, or this is what I do for my clients. I call all the listing agents and I find out what the homes are pending for, or whatever it is that you can share at that point that you couldn't have shared when you first had started in the business.
Absolutely. And a great agent can work in any market, but having a specialty neighborhood where you can do that, where you can say, "I've seen every home come on and off the market in this neighborhood for the last decade," or "I know every, active agent in this neighborhood. And exactly, I can make that phone call. We can see it early. I can get your offer to the top of the line or top of the list," is a huge advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. Just a few weeks ago, I had a client that submitted an offer on your listing, and basically, through our conversations, I knew what the client had to do. Ultimately, client will be the ultimate decision maker, and we both know why he didn't get his offer accepted. But again, having these relationships in the market, it's funny. I was listening to a podcast on YouTube, and the guy was saying, he says, there's no such thing as someone that's self-made, right? Self-made millionaire, billionaire, successful people, because along the way, there's people you have to build relationships with, right? There's mentors that you need to help you out. There's a great book I read last year called Mastery by Robert Greene. Robert Greene is the author of the 48 Laws of Power. And in Mastery, he talks about that, right? Having mentorships, having relationships, having people that are going to assist you as you climb up. And again, whether that person's on a parallel level or above you or below you, it's important, because if people don't like you in this market, it's going to be a hard time getting your offer accepted.
Very well said. And I think that's something we want to touch on kind of today in our talk too, is like, what is business by referral? What does that mean? Absolutely. And a lot of people think building a business by referral means, oh, you help these people sell their home or buy their home, therefore their friends should use you or their family members should use you. But a big part of my business is not referral just from my clients, but referrals from other realtors. I had multiple transactions last year that were either referred to me by realtors out of the area or realtors that were gearing towards retirement or had retired and believed that I would support their client and referred me the business.
That's so interesting. And we talked about that when we went to lunch recently, that's one core part of your business, because you're right. I think if someone starts or someone is new to the business, they basically learn, I'd say 4 things primarily, right? One is cold call, right? Your cold calling expires, FISBOs, or just sold people around the neighborhood. 2 is host open houses, right? You basically, whether it's your listing or not, probably not your listing in the beginning, right? Someone else's listing, you go there and you hope a buyer comes in and you can work with them, right? 3 today might be like online leads, whether that's Redfin, Zillow, or Realtor.com. Or 4 is, friends or family referrals, basically friends or family, or when you do have past clients. But outside of that, there's so many other ways you can acquire business. Like you said, referrals from other agents, right? Or business to business contacts, whether it's a CPA or a financial advisor or a probate attorney, right? The list can go on and on, on and on we can get to. But it's important to find these other niches, kind of like you have, because there's less competition there versus if you're doing the other 4 that we just discussed. Where I want to get back to right now, Liza, is eventually you did go on your own, right? You kind of became your own woman in real estate, right? Talk a little bit about that decision when you went on your own. I believe at that time you moved to a different brokerage. And is that really where you think things really took off? Or what was that experience like when you finally went on your own?
So great. We can go back there. The year was 2018.
5 years
ago.
And
it was something I started thinking about in 2017. So 2017, my older son, Lincoln, was born. And again, I'm really deeply rooted into the Willow Glen community. And at that time, I was working still with Mark Jatar, and I was working in another office and brokerage, not within our Willow Glen community. And what I realized was I wanted to be closer to home. I wanted to be able to run home if the nanny needed me. I wanted to be able to, honestly just work, live, have lunch, walk to work, sometimes, and just be really hyper localized. Not to say I only work here, but I wanted to have my focus here. So I started kind of toying with it in 2017, and I'd already been building a steady business with Mark, and I was starting to get not just buyers, but some listings on my own and kind of ready to branch out. And so I had the opportunity to go and make the move to a brokerage here in Willow Glen. And although it was scary, I really felt ready because I had enough business behind me and enough experience that I had the tools. I just had to take the leap of faith to just be on my own.
Absolutely. So if you're familiar with the 10,000 hour rule, it says you need about 10,000 hours before you feel like you've mastered something. So if you look at real estate, roughly speaking, if we work a 40-hour week, 50 times per year, that's about 2,000 hours. So if you do that 5 times over, that's 10,000 hours. So at that point, you had about 10,000 hours as a real estate professional. You feel like you knew what you're doing. you're moving to this new brokerage that's located in Willow Glen. And now, as mentioned, you're now going to go ahead and start building your business there. Talk a little bit about, again, entrenching yourself in that community, right? Because it could apply to anybody that wants to farm, right? In real estate, farming means like you have a community, 500 homes, 1,000 homes, or the entire block or neighborhood or city, if it's not a big city, I believe, that you could really try to, again, take market share and become the dominant agent in that neighborhood. So talk to us a little bit about like what your goals, your plans, your intentions were with establishing your name there in Willow Glen, now that you had moved to this new brokerage.
So my plan was to continue to do the same amount of business. So again, about 15 to 20 home sales per year, but this time all on my own. And so I had to create a marketing plan that would support that goal. And so what that meant to me was basically marketing every 3 weeks. And then, you know, we're really lucky, Fernando, that we work in real estate. People want to talk about real estate. It is not hard to go to the gym and talk about, did you see the home around the corner that went up for sale? Did you hear about how many offers that home got? What the sales price was? I mean, even if they have no plans to buy or sell, it's an easy conversation piece. And so I was able to just continue to have those conversations at the gym, at lunch, with friends. And then my older guy started preschool, you know, meeting preschool parents and things of that nature, and continuing to market. And what market means for me is, you kind of touched on what a real estate farm is. So
Correct.
My real estate farm at that time was about 1,300 homes.
Okay.
And those homes would get one direct marketing mail piece from me every 3 to 4 weeks, and still do to this day.
Consistency.
Yeah, long game.
It's a long game, absolutely. There's a lot of things that we
100%.
have to do in this business to again, going back to staying relevant, that requires, first of all, an upfront investment and then a continual investment to stay present. But let's talk a little bit about the message, right? Because it's one thing to say just sold, just listed, area expert, which is a typical stuff that a lot of people send when they send out. But when we had lunch recently, we talked about things that make you stand out, things that you can write, you know, in your marketing pieces or include that is a different and unique message to the people that you're targeting. So talk to us about some of those messages that you're putting out right now.
So I think it really comes back to authenticity. You know, I never want to be disingenuous, and I try to convey that in my marketing as well. And so one thing that I really believe in, it's going to sound so silly, is ethics.
Okay.
Ethics sounds really simple, but you'd be surprised how many realtors in our marketplace will want to represent both sides of a transaction. And though it's absolutely legal and people sign contracts, they understand what that means. One thing that makes me a little bit different is that I absolutely don't represent both a buyer and a seller on a transaction. And so I've been saying that for years and years and years. And then guess what happened?
What happened? Tell us.
One of my best friends wanted to buy my listing.
Oh, wow.
So I'm already contractually obligated to the seller, right? Been working with the seller for a number of years, helped them sell a previous property. And now literally my best friend wants to buy the listing. Well, Liza in her marketing pieces says, down to ethics. I don't represent both sides. So what do? Do I represent my best friend who, by the way, I've been trying to help buy a house for 3 years?
Yeah.
No, I had to refer out my best friend to another agent because I'm stuck. That's it. That's my principle in business. And so when we talk about like, what's my message is community service. My message is ethics. My message is principles, honesty, negotiation, transparency. You know, you can be all of those things and still make a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite shows, and I'm obsessed with it. I have been for many years. It's American Greed. Have you heard of American Greed?
Oh, I've heard of it. Yeah.
On CNBC, and they show a lot of examples of people that, in my opinion, is they wouldn't have been successful anyways, right? Whether they were financial advisors, or they were in real estate or in mortgages, or they were they started a charity, right? Or they worked for a church, whatever it was. But they always got consumed with money, with the lifestyle, with more and more and more. And they started to cut corners along the way. And next thing you know, they're in this big fraud now, and now they lose everything, and they go to jail and they go to prison, and it's all bad, right? And it's happened too with a lot of people in real estate. And there's people that maybe you haven't heard, but they've gone into it. I think we have an ethics board that will bring people up there to see what happened and whatnot, right? So if you're always doing the ethical thing, you don't have to worry about it, right? And it's not even if you, hey, I get caught. You're just doing it because this is what I'm telling people I won't do. And even in the situation where your best friend wanted to buy your listing, you still had to tell her, I can't help you with that.
I can't help you with that. And that's a really hard thing, right? Because like, this is what we talk about when we say, like, I'm community driven, I'm client focused. Okay. This is the right property for my friends. I absolutely want them to buy it. I think it's a great home that has all these attributes that they're looking for. They should absolutely buy it. I just can't be the one to help them do it. And if I were just tied to that transactional amount, to that paycheck, I would have done it, right? But it's not who I am. It's not what I stand behind. It's not my brand. And so in the end, I referred them out, and they did get the house, and I'm very happy for them. But I was not able to represent them in that purchase.
Still was a win-win though. You like you said, you held on to your ethics and your integrity, because that's what is in your marketing piece, is what you tell people, and what you tell a seller when you sit down with them to talk about listing their homes and how you're going to best represent them. Your best friend still got the house, and you move on to the next battle, right? But that's an interesting story. Let's talk about let's kind of do kind of a reverse course. Do you remember a situation in your career as you're growing, as you're climbing up the ranks, let's say, where maybe there was something that happened that with the client at, oh man, I shouldn't have done that, said that kind of made you realize, like, you know what, this is something I shouldn't do no more, say no more, or kind of an example where you kind of learned a lesson?
So it's not just in real estate, but it is in life. Fernando, you've known me for almost 10 years now, and I'm chatty, I'm social, and I thrive on that, right? It's like I was telling a mom walking home from school today, like, I'm probably a lot at 7:30 in the morning, I was just walking back from elementary school, and I'm just talking her ear off, because I really, really thrive on, sorry, I'm clearing a cookie. I really thrive on communication and socialization. And so what I have learned in business is sometimes it's like a little less Liza Carneghi and a little more Liza Carneghi Realtor. Meaning, like, we don't have to spend half the appointment talking about me or the gym or what I bought that day or the kids. Like, when I'm with my clients, I need to be client centric, and of course there can be time for that personal relationship as well, but it shouldn't be at work.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because I think I can agree with that. Sometimes you're right. You want to get too personal, too comfortable, your friends, your buddies, and then something goes wrong. And then it's just like, they feel like, wow, like this person, they're a good friend, but they weren't the professional I thought I should have hired.
Absolutely. And that, it ties into presentation too, right? Like, I have a lot of colleagues, and like, I'm really casual. It's like, we had lunch the other day. I came from Pilates. I'm in my workout clothes. But when I show up for my clients, whether they're friends, referrals, or people I had no existing relationship with, I always dress professionally. And no, of course, that doesn't mean a suit and tie for me, but I don't show up in my workout clothes and Nikes 9 times out of 10. There's always that one time if you're project managing something, but it's really important to differentiate, when you're just your casual self or socializing versus the professional aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I want to do for the last, say, 5 to 6 minutes or so, I want to take it to where we are today. So today you're at a newer brokerage. I think you made the move a year ago or 2 years ago.
Year and a half, almost a year and a half ago.
Okay, so a year and a half ago, you moved over to this new brokerage that you're with today, which is Compass, a large national brokerage that 10 years ago, I don't think existed, but they've definitely made their presence known over the last, again, 5-6 years, whenever they came into the scene. But let's talk about your life today, working at Compass. Again, still in Willow Glen, still trying to build your presence. What would you say at this level where you're at today, where you're doing really well, kind of hitting those goals that you had mentioned to me? What would you say your life is like today as a realtor there in Willow Glen and Compass, someone growing their business, again, trying to get more market share in Willow Glen? What would you say your life is like today?
Your life is fantastic. Not just in real estate, in every aspect. And of course, it's easy to pick on like all the little things, right? You can make more, you could produce more, and it's easy. So let me back up. Yes, I joined Compass in Willow Glen about 18 months ago. And that was a really exciting opportunity to be part of the founding members here at this Willow Glen office. But it also meant stepping my game up, because I'm now directly competing against other top producers in our marketplace. And that was intimidating. At first I'm like, shoot, if I go up against that guy, I'm going to lose. That realtor rocks, right? And then you start to realize I'm different. My message is different. My, communication style is different, or negotiation style, or marketing style, or just who I am. And then you realize I just want to be at the table with those guys. And so that's what it really dawned on me, that number one, there's enough business for absolutely everybody to be successful. And number two, hey, if I'm competing against these realtors with, I've got 10 years of experience, maybe you have 20 or 25, maybe I'm selling 25 million a year and they're selling 50 million, and I'm sitting at the table across from them, that's hugely beneficial, because it's going to elevate my business. And I think that's what's really happened. Year over year, I'm doing better and better. I think I hold myself to higher accountability in not only my production level, my level of customer service. Sorry, my manager just walked by. But also in the marketing materials and the quality of materials that I put out.
Absolutely. You're growing.
Yeah. And I'm running it like a business. I sit in December and I write down, and it's not the old business plan that you and I used to do side by side that said, if we sell 10 houses for $1 million, we'll be able to go out to lunch every week. No, that's not it. It's going to cost me $60,000 to run my business this year, because that's going to get my marketing out. That's going to get my notepads out. That's going to run my website. That's going to ensure that everything is professionally done, whether it's brochures or photography or signage or, virtual tours. And that's holding myself to a higher standard.
That's awesome. You're getting very detailed with what your plan is. So let's talk about growth now, right? I want to talk about 3 things as far as growth goes. One is, because this could apply to anybody, especially you newer agents or agents that kind of, hey, I got to restart my business, reset things, refresh things. One is your farm, growing your farm. We'll talk about that. Talk about one. The second one let's talk about is growing your personal brand, right? The Liza Carneghi Willow Glen Realtor brand. And the last one that I want to talk about as far as growth is your plans with social media or video or anything like we're doing today, because I think you really have a good video presence and speaking presence. So let's talk about those 3.
Okay, what was the first one?
First one is growing within your farm. Sort of your plans, or how do you think you want to grow more in the Willow Glen area and gain more market share there?
So guess what? I don't want to grow that much. I just had this conversation with someone. I want to be consistent, but I don't want to scale so big that I can't meet my expectations or my clients' expectations of what their interaction or experience should be with working with me. So for example, this sounds so silly, but it's like I've got this townhome listing And it's
Okay.
like, my clients are texting me like, can you pull the cans in, after trash day? Yes, I
Yeah.
can. Yes, I can. That's part of it, right? It's not just the beautiful brochure. It's not just negotiating the offer. I want to be able to pull their trash cans in. I'm going to go water your garden. I'm going to be there when there's a plumbing leak. And I can't really scale myself. So I want to make sure that I'm consistent in meeting those expectations and not getting too big. So my goal is to continue on the path that I'm on, if that's fair.
No, that's good. Absolutely. Like you said, you've already done that. And so if someone is newer or they're refreshing their business, what that just tells me is when they take a client is give them as much client care as possible. And that person will tell their neighbor and the more business you do in that area, the more people will know about the things that you do and the service that you provide.
Exactly. Exactly. Be consistent, be authentic, do your job, show up, and put in the time. And so then when it gets to farming, it's similar. My goal is not to make my farm larger. My farm is 1,850 homes.
Okay.
It's been that for about 5 years now. I went from about 1,000 or 1,300 to 1,850 about 5 years ago. And that's it. I don't want to get bigger. I don't want more. I want to keep doing what I'm doing, because I want to be present and I want to go to the garden club's event in my farm and I want to support the school and I want to be present.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk
So for
about
someone
growing.
newer, pick a farm
Pick a
and stick
farm
to
and
it.
get started.
Consistency.
Yeah. Let's talk about growing your personal brand. You had mentioned that you were sponsoring, I believe, your kids' soccer team, and you had mentioned a few other things that you're sponsoring and getting your name out there in the non-salesy way. Let's talk about that, building the Liza Carneghi brand so people start coming to you.
Yeah. So something I just started doing is I actually have a QR code now that goes out on my marketing pieces. And that QR code takes them straight to my website. And a big part of or tab within my website is like, why Liza Carneghi, right? Like, what's different about me than Fernando or the guy or gal next door? And so there, and then yes, I'm sponsoring Lincoln Glen's T-ball. So I have a banner there and I put, let's go Lincoln Glen T-ball on it. I don't do the grocery stores, but I think that's a great way to market as well. I haven't had the opportunity, but that's something I'm open to. And I think just like being active in your community and what you like, right? So like if you're an athlete, join a running group. If you're a coffee buff, join that. If you're into gardening, join a garden club and just do it because the business will be a byproduct of something you're already enjoying being in. So it's like, I'm going to the T-ball field every weekend. Why not have people see my name and then get to see who I am, both professionally and personally?
Absolutely. And doing it that way, it's almost like you're providing value. You're not being there to pitch people, right? To like, hey, what's up? I'm Liza Carneghi. Do you know anyone that wants to buy? And there are people like that, and they start giving you a card right away, or maybe on Instagram or on LinkedIn. Their first message to you is salesy already versus trying to build an authentic relationship with you.
Yeah. Be
So
yourself.
let's talk about. Go ahead.
I said, yeah, be yourself.
Absolutely, be yourself, and then people will just ask you about real estate. Hey, Liza, by the way, since you're a realtor, what's my home worth, or what do you think is going to happen in the market, and just general. Actually, went to a family gathering last weekend, a gender reveal party, and I talked to real estate to a bunch of people there, right? Just kind of answering questions and sharing thoughts on the market and this and this and that, and you never know what may come out of it, but it's always good, like I said, to be present.
And it's fun. I mean, it's our career, it's our livelihood. But as I said at the very beginning, like people like to talk about real estate, especially real estate in the Bay Area, right? We have great, very high home values in a very rapid marketplace. So sometimes they don't know even what their neighbor's home sold for because it was on and off the market in a second. And so being able to provide that value, have that conversation, it's good for us as realtors, right? It's keeping us sharp, but it's also providing value and creating kind of an authentic, natural connection with someone.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about growth. Lastly, with what we're doing today, which is we're doing a video podcast. We're going to share this on social media. One thing that I would love to see you do more is do more videos, do more, maybe, I don't know, Willow Glen, things to do, 3 things to do in Willow Glen, or don't move to Willow Glen if X, Y, and Z. Basically, just sharing your knowledge on video again, because you're very personable, you're talkative. What are your plans with regards to, say, social media or video moving forward?
I don't have any. Fernando, I get so nervous on camera. I wanted to barf before we started this
Wow.
broadcast.
I wouldn't know that.
I am not into it. As I texted you,
Mhm.
I'm committed to you because I honor my commitments, and I
Yeah.
said yes. So I showed up today, but I've been saying all day, like, oh, I'm nervous. I'm not going to articulate myself well. I'm nervous that I'm not going to look good on camera, or I'm not going to like my 2 chins, or however it comes across.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think the fact that you do this, that you create the video content, is absolutely the future. I'm on TikTok and Instagram all day long. That's the truth. And I'm constantly watching this type of content. So should I be creating it? A million, billion, billion%. Do I applaud everyone who's doing it? A million, billion, billion%. Am I petrified to try it myself? Also a million, billion, billion%. So perhaps I just need you to hold me accountable to it.
Well, I definitely always could. It's funny. I used to not want to do, again, video content as well. I was like, oh, you can get nervous. I'm gonna mess up, and people are better than me at this. And I look at stuff that I did years ago when I really wasn't taking it serious to say today. Like, I feel like I'm getting a lot better. Even the first podcast that I did, this is my 4th one now. And I've done some other Instagram lives and whatnot. But I just look back and go, man, I screwed up. And now look at it like, yeah, we're gonna screw up. But the whole point is, you look at the overall video, the overall podcast. Does it get better each time, or almost every time? And that's it. That's progress. So if you do want to do some videos, let me know. I can always share ideas with you and tell you some of the things that I'm doing.
I think it's wonderful, and I'm absolutely open to it.
Awesome. Well, let's wrap this up, Liza. If there's one message you can give for people out there that either are starting in real estate or in a funk or want to refresh their career, what would you suggest that they do?
Have confidence. Have confidence in yourself. Figure out, go back to who you are, how you identify as a person, and use that as a catalyst to your business. I wish that I had been completely authentic and open from the beginning, because I think my confidence would have grown. And then I think the second piece is consistency.
That's it.
Just do it. Show up. Do the work.
Get it done.
The results will follow.
Awesome. And people, if they have questions about, say, Willow Glen or the Willow Glen real estate market or anything, how should they best get a hold of you?
So a great way to reach me is through my website, lizacarneghi.com, or they can ping me a text, or stop by my office.
Awesome. So I'll include some of those links below. Liza, thank you so much for your time today. I had a wonderful conversation with you today. And I know you were nervous, but you did excellent. So thanks again for your time.
Thanks, Fernando. See you soon.
Take care.